So you guys remember that map feedback loop that DICE opened up to us in their last blog post? Well, now they have finished processing our feedback and they've just gotten back to us in a brand new blog post that details exactly what they intend to change with the maps. So let's get into it here. So as an initial change, in order to shorten the traversal distances from flag to flag and, get rid of that walking simulator feeling that we're all too familiar with, they've basically bunched up the objectives a little bit closer so it shouldn't feel like it takes you quite as long to move from flag to flag. Another problem with Traversal was that sometimes there simply weren't any vehicles available for you to call in, leaving you basically stranded. Now apparently, due to game performance, they can't simply increase the number of transport vehicles per team, but what they have done is moved the MC5 Bolt to the attack vehicle section, and I believe the MAV is now going to be in the transport vehicle section. And they have also made the decision, and this is a big one, to move the Nightbird from the transport vehicles into the attack vehicles. So now in the attack vehicles, you're going to have the attack helicopter, the Nightbird, and then in the ground attack vehicles, you're going to have the tanks and the Bolt. So that should leave some of the actual transport vehicles available to people who want to use them as just that, to, get from place to place on the battlefield, not to go and shred the enemy team. Now, according to the feedback that DICE received, two of the main offending maps, and those maps that people had the biggest problems with, were Kaleidoscope and Renewal. So those are the maps they're going to be looking into making further changes to first, and those changes will be coming in Season 1 this summer. And some of those changes come in the form of more cover on the maps. A lot of people complain that the maps just feel like barren wastelands. They're too flat, they're too open, there are too many angles all of the time. So here are a couple of examples how DICE have changed Kaleidoscope. So here you've got the G1 sector, which is in front of one of the skyscrapers, and as you can see, they've added a bunch of crates and obstacles that you can get some cover behind there and sort of push up to the objective. The doorway there to the actual skyscraper itself, the enemies aren't visible from there, so you're not going to get sniped out of that doorway where there's just campers laying in shadows. And then here, additionally, we've got some difference in the terrain elevation, and this now to me is looking much more like what a battlefield map should look like. Rocks, trees, things that you can just take cover behind. It really brings home just how open and flat Battlefield 2042's maps have been up until now. The next thing they touched on was Immersion. A lot of people, especially with, again, the map Kaleidoscope, they said it looks too perfect, too pristine. There's always been that long-running joke of the groundskeeper of Kaleidoscope. This is supposed to be a war-torn dystopian world, yet we have these perfectly mowed lawns all over Kaleidoscope with these little cute gazebos and whatnot. It doesn't really feel like a battlefield. So they've actually gone ahead and changed the Sector B1 objective here, and instead of it being indeed a cute little gazebo, which, let's face it, it wasn't a particularly interesting objective, they have now changed it to be a military installation. They're replacing the grass with mud, and they're going to cover the area in barbed wire to better immerse you into the world. Okay, so the next thing they went over is the intensity of battles. For intensity, they basically outlined that, especially in 128 player modes, combat can just become too chaotic around objectives. It makes it hard to determine exactly what's going on around you, where the attack is going to come from, and you feel like you really can't react and you just don't know where to focus your attention. And a lot of that comes from vehicle dominance from vehicles like the Nightbird or the Bolt. So based on that feedback, like I mentioned before, they're moving both the Nightbird and the Bolt into the attack vehicle categories, so you won't be seeing as many of those. But they've also reduced the amount of attack vehicles from 3 down to 2. So previously you could spawn in, 3 attack helicopters or jets. That is now going to be down to 2, and of course the Nightbird is going to be lumped into that category, so you can only have 2 of any of these vehicles up at a time. And the same thing goes with the ground attack vehicles. So the IFV, the tank, what's it called? Not the IFV, the Wildcat it's called, the tank, and now the Bolt. You're only going to be able to spawn 2 of these in 128 players. In addition to that, they've also increased the cooldown for attack vehicles and helicopters from 60 seconds to 120 seconds. So not only have they reduced the overall amount by 33%, but they've increased or doubled the spawn timer there. So that should make a pretty big difference. You're not going to be seeing dominant vehicles on the battlefield anywhere near as much as before. Now they're also paying attention to the pathing between objectives, removing unused areas, and putting in additional cover in paths between those objectives. So when you're on your way from one flag to another, those specific paths that people often go down should be now even more decked out with cover in the right places, and some of those unused areas that just kind of got in the way, those will now be made as out of bounds areas. Now, they are also tinkering with the idea of possibly making the vehicle call-ins transport only. So at the moment, if you're a soldier, boots on the ground, you can still call in tanks and bolts and all these other kinds of vehicles, right? They're considering making the only vehicle call-ins be transport. So, you know, the Jeep, possibly the hovercraft, I guess. Something else they're also toying with is increasing the capturable area on flags. So that area that you have to stand in to capture the sector. I keep forgetting they're not called flags anymore, they're called sectors. They're toying with the idea of basically making that a little bit larger so you're not as cramped up. You have a little bit more cover to work with on those objectives. You can be a bit more tactical, basically. So when are these changes actually coming? So the vehicle changes, I think that the spawn timer increase and moving some of the vehicles into the attack section, the Nightbird into the attack vehicle section, and the Bolt, that is coming in the next patch. They didn't say when that patch would be, but in the last blog post, they quoted sometime in April. So you can pretty much expect it this month. I'm sure when it gets nearer to that time, they will let us know. I think the rest of the changes, most of them to the actual maps, that is all going to be coming with Season 1 later on this summer. To finish up, they let us know that the next core feedback session that they're going to open up to us in a couple of weeks' time is going to be all about specialists. So I guess that's going to be the same format. They open that up to us, look into the trouble areas, what are our problems with specialists, then they'll give us a couple of weeks to submit feedback, and then based upon that feedback, they will make a blog post much like this one and tell us what they plan to do. My guess is that they're going to do what we've all been asking them to do for months now, and that is essentially just to put the specialists in classes of their own. Anyway guys, as always, let me know what you think of these changes down below. Is this enough to, bring you back to the game? Personally, I don't really think anyone's going to come, clambering back to the game just because they made a few map changes. But I do think building all these things on top of Season 1 is a good idea. So if they can manage to release a good amount of content with Season 1 and then make all of these changes to the specialist system and to the vehicles and to the older maps that already exist and bring that all as one package in Season 1, that might be enough to at least make some people reinstall the game and come and check it out. But as always, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think about it down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.